order. We are in the Board of Education meeting room. It is 7 p.m. We welcome all of our visitors online this evening. If you will stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
This is Mr. Phillips' 5th period yearbook class, and this is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Jones, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mrs. Spindler.
Here.
Mr. Vincent. Here. Mr. Zani. Mrs. Engel.
Here. We have a quorum. We can continue. We need a motion for the adoption of the agenda, please.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. Jones.
Mr. Vincent. Yes. Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes, that motion passes. We need approval of minutes for the June 18th, 2020 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent. Yes. Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. Motion passes. We need a motion to approve the financial report as presented by the treasurer, and then we can discuss, please.
Move approval of the financial report.
Second. All right, Mr. Jones.
Included with the agenda is the month end or fiscal year end executive summary for the school district. For the month, our revenue was about $659,000 below what we estimated, and the majority of that was because of the budget reduction. Basically, the final 2/3 payment came out, so that's what hit us the most. But year to date, we were under estimate, but only by $131,000, and though we lost $856,000 in school funding. We had enough really other places that made up that we only lost $131,000 for the whole fiscal year. Fiscal year to date, though, our expenditures were way down. Well, for the monthly order, fiscal year to date, our expenditures were $732,000 less than we expected. So in essence, we were positive cash flow. Our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $600,000. So either we lost $800,000, and we still ended with a positive cash flow for the year, which is good and help us move forward with a little extra money there. I haven't really heard much from School Foundation. All I think we've heard is basically the cuts are staying in place for the rest for now, the 5%, but no increase over it. But so what that's reserved, it could be down the road increase. But right now, only the 5% reduction is in place, and I had 10% in the forecast. So if for some reason they don't do it, again, that'd be about $800,000 more than we expected. So, but obviously we get 12 months to go yet, so we'll see how we end up in that year. So, other than that, it's a very routine month, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. All right, that motion passes. All right, we need a motion to approve personnel consent calendar, item number 4, A through K, either one or all of those.
Move approval. A through K.
Second. Any discussion?
Can I share something?
Yeah, absolutely.
On K, the admin supervisor one-time payment, I know it's worded on there, but I just wanted to point out that those stipends for the admins are in lieu of no % increase or a step increase. So they're not getting either of those next year, this year.
Wonderful. And we appreciate all of the employees of the district working with us as we go through the financial things that we're going through. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Sorry. Mrs. Engel.
Yes, that motion passes. Motion to approve item 5A, employment and/or ratification of certified licensed personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Abstain.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes. Motion passes. Item 5B, addendum to employment contract, treasurer's contract.
Move approval 5B.
I'll second that. It's fine. Any- It doesn't matter. Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
That motion passes. And item 5C, addendum to approve an amendment to the, or addendum to the superintendent's employment contract.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
I'll just say I had to think long and hard about this, but I feel like moving forward, this is something that I wouldn't mind seeing for everybody. And because of that, I don't have an issue approving this now. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm ready to vote.
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 6, business items. Need to look at these, I would guess, separately. So we've got,
some could be, but yeah,
yeah.
beginning.
All right, 6A, motion to approve the resolution for abatement.
Move approval 6A.
I'll second.
Mr. Jones?
This is the second abatement request by Core 5. The board previously approved one for Southgate Corporation site, and this one's a little bigger building. The first one was about 400,000, I think it's about 600,000 square feet off Mink Road, or Mink Street. So all the terms are the same. We get 30% of the gross income tax. There's also the 1.5 cents per leasable square foot payment, and $10,000 on offset our legal fee. So I feel it's a good deal for the school district, and I ask the board, please approve the recommendation.
Have the other entities that are involved in the abatement process already approved the abatement, or are we the first one to do so?
We're the first one.
Okay.
It's my understanding that actually Core 5 Southgate was actually approved by Ed Township.
Oh, it was, okay.
It's my understanding that did happen.
And look, we're approving another one without any kind of agreement.
Amazing.
It is amazing how, wow, we can work honestly.
Exactly.
All right. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes. That motion passes. 6B. We need a motion to approve the new intermediate school dedication sign.
So moved.
Second.
I don't care.
So I include on here attachment, the dedication sign that was proposed for the board to look at. The sign was basically, though it says 2019, it was drafted at the time the plans were approved. 2018, obviously, because Kenny became board president in 2019. It's my understanding that dates will actually change to 2020, because that's the year schools will actually open. So, two things is, do you like the information on it, and how it's arranged on it, or who's on it? And then the second part is, do you like how your name is spelled? I know Mr. Vincent's already communicated he wants a Y as middle initial in there. We've done that. So currently, as of 2018, Mr. Zine was board president, Candy was the vice president, and Mr. Janelle was superintendent. But as of now, you're sitting here. So it's up to you as a board on what you want to say.
It's going to say 2020 on the sign.
Yes, my understanding is going to 2020.
Then it's going to need to say our current superintendent. in my personal estimation.
I think that it should say 2000, if it's saying 2020, I think it also should have the board listed the way it is for 2020, personally. That's my 2 cents. And then my only other 2 cents, I guess I have 4 cents. All the L's in here look like they're in bold. And my L in Spindler, and obviously Bob Janelle wouldn't necessarily be on there. The L's in Miller, and then the I in Ink. I don't know if it looks that way in real life, but in this copy it does.
Yeah, I'll have them check into that and make sure.
Does anyone else see what I'm
I
saying?
do,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The
I
L's
just think
and
it would
I's
look weird if it actually comes out that way. but-
So, I got a question, with putting Casey's name, should we remove Bob's name? Because I think Bob's name should stay on there.
I would be okay if, could we
think we'll
add
put
a
project
project manager
manager?
line?
Okay,
I would be okay with that as well.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Project administrator.
yep,
Yeah,
Below treasurer.
He's one higher, I'm just saying.
like, you could,
I don't care
if you
about the
space
order.
out if you space out Board of Education on the left, then you can space out Superintendent, Treasurer, and Project
Yeah,
Manager on the right. I mean, I'm sure they can space it out accordingly. Yeah, I think you would put Project Manager and put Bob's name on it.
So Candy will be the president, John be the vice president, everybody else will be alphabetical order. Are you okay with the name spell? I know John's changed his, are you okay? I'm good with that. Okay. That's how I'll send that to him. Ready to vote on it?
Ready to vote, everybody?
I
Okay.
assume you're gonna want the same way for high school, so we can always say when high school comes, what match you're saying.
Well,
It might be
High
21.
school,
Yeah,
yeah,
21 may be
21.
different, yeah.
Yeah.
right, if the
Yeah,
makeup
yep.
of the board is,
We'll look
Yeah,
at that
if it,
time.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll look at that time.
All right, sorry. Mrs. Moore,
yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. All right, that passes. Item 6C. The handbooks have all been updated. We need a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve 6C.
Second.
All right.
We're all second happy too.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
I didn't know, Deb had sent a couple of questions today. Tam was looking on the athletics with, Jake, so I didn't know if we wanted to talk about those
Yeah, we can.
questions, or,
Yeah, my only suggestion was for the athletic handbook is to add a blurb in there that if a parent is eliminated from being at our site during athletic events, that the athletic director would communicate that with the youth coaches. So we don't get into a situation where we have a parent who is coaching youth sports who has been kicked out of our ability to attend.
So if we have a parent that's been kicked out of one of our games as a spectator, we should alert the youth program.
I think, I don't know if it was just one kicked out. I think when we discussed this last time, it was if we've told this parent this is your last chance and they violate that last chance and we say you cannot come to any of our athletic events again. So we should let the youth know, because that way the youth has their own board and they can decide whether or not they're gonna use that person as a coach or not. But we need to have that communication with them.
Yeah, we can add that, we could probably make that as, I talked to Mr. Perkins, and you could probably make that a blanket statement somewhere within the body of the handbook, and I'm not sure, because under sportsmanship, it gives that, the consequences for being removed from a game, maybe we can put that under there.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to him, we
Yep.
can add that there.
Yeah, I just don't want us to get in that situation where we were last year. Just keep that communication. Then my other thing was, in reference to the attendance, I was not in favor of eliminating the attendance requirement, but was okay with adding some kind of blurb, like if we don't have school, then obviously we're not gonna expect them to be at school.
Yeah, and that was the one, and we talked about that as well. We can add some things to that. I think that the key with Fridays was if you had a kid that was ill on Friday, but then was able to participate on Saturday, you didn't want them coming to school sick just to be eligible for, to be able to participate on Saturday. But the other piece is in there, that half a day is still in there,
Right,
and we could add specific, you know, situations or circumstances
Okay.
in there as well.
yeah, I'm all for the exceptions and things like that. And what was the other one?
That's it, good too.
Those are two.
Shoot, did I have one for band? Oh, I did have one for band, where it talked about that.
That was just to clean up semantics, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
private
Yes.
that parents had to provide private lessons to their kids.
Yeah, we'll get that.
I
That's
just, my
language
thing
we'll
was
get
like
back.
when applicable, or
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to feel that they can't participate if they can't afford private lessons. Yeah. Those are my only concerns.
I just thought of something that we already voted on, so I don't know if I'm supposed to do
Let it-
Robert's rules wise.
Yeah, hold on, let us finish this and then we'll bring that back up. Gotcha. That's how I'm gonna let it roll, so. That's probably not Robert's rule, but we'll do that.
So that's it, I just wanted to share Deb's things, and I think overall Tanya did an awesome job.
Yeah,
they look good.
they look really good.
Yes, they
Very
do.
good.
Quite the task. The first draft I got, all the capital P's and R's were
Yeah, we had some issues.
done.
It's, yeah, when you transfer to Google, yeah.
Yeah, no, they do, they turn, I'm like,
I
oh,
felt
these
like
look
we were
good.
playing Licking Heights again, but this time we were getting rid of Reynoldsburg and Pickering.
Yeah, I'm like, these look so good. Oh, can we just go to school so we can hand them out?
Yes.
That's right. All right. Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes, all right, that motion passes. Great. Mr. Jones?
How do you want me to do this?
She has something she needs to bring back up. How do we do that?
It could just be a question.
I mean, you can answer a question if you want to, I guess, propose an amendment maybe to the resolution that was approved.
I don't know that we have to, I just wanna ask
Yeah, I think that's fine. If you-
Go ahead.
so this intermediate, if we're talking about the high school sign being 21, because that's when it opens in the fall of 21, doesn't the intermediate school open in the January of 21?
It's gonna be completed in November. It's
Okay.
completed in November of 20.
Okay,
We're just moving in.
gotcha. That's all I needed. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Item 6, D and E, we need a motion to approve policy, second readings and first readings.
Motion to approve 6D and E.
I'll second those. Any questions on those?
You want to talk about the first changes to first reading?
Yeah, right, do that for this interscholastic.
Yeah.
So, this is to align our, current policy. Ohio High School waived the requirements for fall sports. So they're just highlighted in there to, give our kids the same eligibility as everybody else. If we have high sports.
Oh, so 5 courses aren't required for
Not for fall.
not,
Fall
oh, fall only.
Not for the entire year.
No, not for the entire year.
Okay.
Fall only.
And no grade point average either, just,
Yep, no GPA.
we're just
no-
winging it on the
Yep.
fall, huh? We're just
Going.
Fall sports.
fall sports, so we might be able to just
Free for all.
play fall sports and just not even go to school is what we're
I
saying.
mean-
All right. That's where we're at right now. Okay, all right. All right. Any questions on those? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes.
The other thing I mentioned is also a temporary improvement, so it's in place, because August 1st, a lot of times the season starts.
Yeah.
And we have to do 2 readings, but you can't temporarily approve it, so that also included a temporary approval of it's in place.
Okay, so it is in place for that
Yes.
for right now. Okay.
So we do final approval, yes.
Okay, all right, item 7, we have a couple of contracts and agreements. Looks like maybe we could take those together to,
It's up to you.
yep,
I move 7A and 7B.
I'll second those. Any questions? All right, Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes?
Mr. Zani, oh, he's not here, sorry.
All right, and treasurer's items, we need a motion to approve one or all of those.
Motion to approve, is it 7?
8.
8A
through C.
through C.
Second.
All right, discussion?
Just real quick donations, so I just appreciate those, thank you. And then now, got a couple timing issues with invoices and purchase orders. And the last one's a transfer. Remember when Mr. Janelle's position was created, we said the general fund wasn't paid for, it's being paid for with the JED receipts. The money set in 04 is where he's paid from, so he's transferred money, the JED extra money to cover all the expenses that were made for Mr. Janelle for this past 6 months. So none of it came out of the general fund, it's all from our JED abatements and our revenue we receive.
Perfect. All right, Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. That motion passes. All right, superintendent's items.
Right. All the waiting for.
I was gonna say, no pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's not like the entire community isn't watching right now.
How many people are online, Jeff?
132.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay, times. Yeah. You got the Jeff? Okay, before you, I nailed clicker, never mind. So before I start kind of sharing a couple of things, first of all, there's a lot of information in this presentation, and I'm not going to read it all, I'm going to summarize. The reason there's so much in here is because tomorrow morning, minus 2 non-applicable slides, I will share with the community, so they need all this information to help them and to give them, to give them answers that they've been asking. So that's why there's so much, just in case you wondered on that. And then I do want to thank the district office team, Tanya and Tan and Dan, because everybody helped a lot to work really hard to put this together. Okay. So, kind of trying to give you an idea of where we're currently at with our survey results and what things are looking like. So we currently have an 81% completion rate of our families that have filled it out. And if you look to the right, it kind of shows you by a graph of, and by grade, who's picking in person, remote, and then we're not sure yet. And then down below are the numbers for each grade level of how many are left that we're waiting on, who has selected remote, and who has done in person. And we're averaging about 83% that are planning on returning back. I do anticipate once additional information is shared tomorrow that number will change. Could be both ways. Some people could go to remote, others could choose to come back based on the information I'll be sharing. And then down below, just for your knowledge, our current transportation requests. I'm going to talk about transportation later on in the presentation, but that's going to be something to discuss as well moving forward. And at any time, if you have questions, just stop me. So kind of just so everyone understands where this is coming from and how we made our decisions. I've been meeting weekly with all of the superintendents in the county, as well as a representative from ODE, Stephanie Dodd, along with the health department, various meetings. Sometimes they joined us, sometimes we had additional meetings. We've had district level committees that have involved district level admins, building admins, the teachers union, instructional coaches. So those are all kind of part of the process that's helped us to put together this plan and where we're at. And then the things that we considered or looked at, obviously, number 1, student and staff safety, academic integrity, the social and emotional needs of staff and students, and then what options could we offer for our families and our parents. As I shared earlier a few weeks ago, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as the presentation goes on as well. But the hybrid option didn't seem to be one that a lot of our families were interested in. I'm going to talk more as to why we kind of didn't go that route, but initially when putting this together. So as everyone knows today, the county was switched to red. And so in having a conversation in great lengths about that, we have decided to recommend having the 2 modes down below. So those are the different levels of risk. And then if you'll notice on the left-hand side, if we were at 1 or 2, we would be all in. So all our kids would be coming to school. Obviously, they still have the option to go online, but that's what we'd be offering. If we would switch to the level red like we are today, or if we were to start school in a month on level red, and obviously level 4, we would do full remote learning. And the reasoning or the rationale behind this, in talking and having a lot of conversations, one of the, when you read the risk level red at 3, high exposure, high spread, limit your activities. Always, of course, we're always worried about kids, but honestly, the ones more susceptible to getting this are the adults. And if you do a hybrid model, you're still exposing all of your staff to every student multiple times over the course of the week. So yes, they are spaced out further, but they're still being exposed to all of those kids in the building, in the halls, etc. My other concern I'm concerned about this in general, but during a hybrid model would be the lack of, like if we had to go to that for level 3, the lack of subs. One of the hot topics of conversation in the county among the superintendents has been, we're going to have a sub shortage this year because our district, like most others, has a lot of retired teachers who would be considered at risk for various reasons, who are probably not going to sub this year. And I'm guessing there will be other people in a similar boat. So now you're asking, let's say you go into level 3, a higher risk, in that hybrid model, now you're asking our subs who's willing to come in and work in that model. And that's concerning to me, and I think that will be a large problem for us as a district. So this is kind of where we landed. So what does that look like? So for the K through 5 learning experience, obviously we'll have the in-person option as well as the remote learning. So in person, we'll be in the classrooms with minimal transitions. The day will be shortened to allow for additional cleaning time and online planning time. The Unified Arts classes will be available on a quarterly basis and will take place within the classroom. So each student K through 5 will stay in the same elective for each 9 weeks. So that will limit the exposure. Those Unified Arts teachers at the elementary see all 600 kids of course a week, and that's a lot to ask any one person. So and they also will only have 4. So there will be 1 elective K through 5 that the kids will just not get over the course of the school year. It's just how it's kind of laid out and how it will be. The hour changes for elementary would be at 9:30 to 3:30, so it's actually only a 20-minute difference to the day. They'll gain 10 minutes back at the end, but in the morning it's 30 minutes late start. So that time will be utilized for the online planning, cleaning. There's going to be a lot of different things, moving pieces going on, and we do need to be prepared in case we do have to go back to full remote learning. So that's going to have an opportunity for those teachers to have that. The secondary, there's a reduction of 10 minutes. To be honest, the reason behind it is not, we're at a different place with the remote platform for secondary. They don't need it for that, but we need it so we're not lengthening the day for our bus drivers. So it'll be the same schedule for the bus drivers as far as timing. And so that's why we reduced the secondary by 10 minutes. So the remote learning experience, students will learn via Google Classroom. We will have pre-recorded lessons and programs. Unified Arts options will be provided using a calendar schedule, and a teacher will be available at designated times for check-in and instructional guidance. So one of the large things I'm hearing from a lot of the community and reading on social media is, will we have a teacher, and what does that look like? So, and one of the things, the difficult part for us is, it's hard for me to tell you exactly until I know how many people are choosing that option. We are very optimistic that we will be able to provide a teacher assigned to those elementary kids, so they would have that one person to work with to go to as a remote teacher. That is our tentative plan, and we're hoping, based on the current numbers we're seeing, that we'll be able to make that happen. And I do think that our parents would feel significantly better about that option, knowing they had one teacher. I think a concern was being grouped in. I think our teachers are concerned as well, not just our parents, about having to teach kids remotely while you're teaching kids in class. And I think that's a lot to ask for our teachers,
Yeah.
and I think that's a lot to put on our families as well. So I'm feeling much better, having had conversations and kind of taking a look at current numbers, that we will be able to do that. And then obviously one of the big things we've heard a lot about is the intervention enrichment. So, either way, we're gonna be able to have, there'll be classroom assessments on both ends of the spectrum. There will be enrichment opportunities. The gifted coordinator and gifted GISs are working on that. There will be intervention provided, whether you're in person or whether you're remote. So it will look different depending on your option, but nobody's gonna go without the things they need. So 6 through 12, similar, but obviously there are some differences. So the in-person at the middle school, to the best of our ability, and if you've ever participated in schedule building, it's hard when you're talking 1,000 students. So they're working hard to cluster the core classes together, which would allow for those that have the means to provide their own transportation, to come late, to leave early. We will have to limit the amount of kids in a lot of electives. We can obviously not put 50 kids on risers and choir. Some of the computer lab rooms are smaller, so in order to have adequate spacing, those numbers will be smaller. So there will be, unfortunately, not as many elective offerings, and I don't know how many parents or families will take advantage of the fact they could come or leave, come late or leave early, but we have had some questions about that, so I'm hoping that's an option. The high school is an easier option because a lot of kids drive. So we're going to best our ability, put the required classes back to back. Now, there have been questions, what does that mean for the high school? So every high school, obviously has your minimum requirements to graduate. But then above and beyond that, students, may be going for an honors diploma, or maybe they're an athlete and they need 5 classes. So those schedules will have to be, the guidance counselors and admin team will have to work together to make sure each individual has what they need to complete the requirements. We've had quite a few parents send us emails, my kid only needs 2 classes. Well, if that's all they need and you don't play a sport and you have everything, then that's what you'll do and then you'll get to go. So we're hoping that once we have the final results from the survey, that we'll be able to start building schedules and having our guidance counselors work with parents to figure out what each individual kid needs. So as that says, more details to come. It'll take a few weeks to work on that. That won't be a quick thing. And then as far as the remote learning, that curriculum will be provided through Admentum. So we will have a teacher, at minimum, maybe more, assigned to monitor and work with the online curriculum. These will be, that curriculum will be aligned to the core classes at the high school. There are lots of electives through Admentum. Not all of them are the same as what we offer, but obviously, things are going to look different when you're remote learning versus when you're in school. So there will be tons of options. Mike is working with the high school on that alignment and kind of getting and the middle school and getting our courses aligned. That way, if a child did choose remote learning and decided to come back second semester, they would be able to go into the class of equivalency of what we offer here at Watkins. Yes.
If a student is using the remote learning and they choose an elective that we don't offer in person, does that elective count towards one of their graduating elective requirements?
Yes, Mike, do you have anything you want to say on that?
The Admentum curriculum is aligned to the highest standards. So just because we don't offer it, we can count it as an elective.
Yeah, obviously, if they're only there for the first semester, it's a half of an elective, but it
Or
might give a student an opportunity to just take something they're super interested in that we wouldn't necessarily offer at the high school.
Right.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, and then the same as the enrichment and intervention for the younger kids will be the same opportunities. It may look differently, but for the older kids as well. Okay. Student services. So this is another big one that there have been a lot of questions about. And Dan is here tonight if there's additional things on this slide that you want to ask. But obviously, students will continue to receive their services outlined in their plans, whether that's IEP, 504, WEPS, RTI, EL, etc. Shared related service equipment will be sanitized between each student use. Scheduled intervention classes are required, so you may not opt out of those unless the guardian refuses services in writing. And then additional accommodations will be made on a case-by-case basis to support student access to learning. So, for example, hearing impaired students, those teachers will have face shields. So all of those sorts of things to make sure our kids' needs are being met, Dan's team is actively working on. And then the remote services, they'll continue to receive the services outlined in their plans. A lot of that, like, said in here, will be through live Zoom sessions. Related services will take place virtually to the greatest extent possible. And then any changes to any of those plans would have to be a team decision. So that's something that would have to be talked with the parents and the teachers. So in talking to Dan and his team, they felt like the spring, all things considering, actually went pretty well. So we think that we would be able to do a good job servicing our kids in both platforms. So kind of an update on the ELC. This is a different, different, I guess, requirements by the state. So we will offer a full ELC program. The classrooms do have to be divided in half with dividers. There will be 9 kids on each side of the room, one paraprofessional on one side with a teacher on the other side. All the hard surfaces, toys and furniture have to be sanitized between classes, and at the end of the day, our staff will wear face coverings. The students are not required to wear them. They will have a temperature check and health checks when arriving at school. This is different, you'll see, than when I get into the K through 12. These students, because of their age and some of their needs, are less likely to be able to articulate that they may be ill towards their family, and so this is an extra precaution in case a health check is missed at home. And then gross motor play will occur in the gym, and on the playground they will be sectioned off without 2 classes at a time. Obviously, transportation for students will continue, and they will offer an online learning option for interested families. So you'll see at the bottom there's attachments. So tomorrow when this goes live, parents will be able to click on some of these links and read additional documentation. So at-home health assessment. So every parent is required, or strongly recommended, I should say, to give their child an at-home health assessment before sending them to school. We are going to have a log the district is going to create to share with our families based off the one the health department's recommending that might help people. You're supposed to be checking for all the symptoms that COVID-related, dry cough, shortness of breath, loss of taste, smell, etc. So obviously this is something we're strongly recommending to our families. That will help us a lot to do our job to make sure that kids come to school in a safe environment. So PPE, this has been kind of a hot topic, and this is kind of where we landed in conversations with the county superintendents and the health department. So students in grades 2 through 12 will have to wear a face covering at all times. There have been a lot of questions about masks versus shields. They can wear anything that covers their nose and their mouth. That's obviously school appropriate. And then the staff will be required to have a face covering at all times as well. The thoughts behind talking to the health department, the K1 kids is obviously their age and the inability to keep that on or to utilize that. So that's not something that's being recommended at this time. We will have an appeal process where for students and or guardians that are requesting not to wear a face covering. So that will run through the student services department, and they will be, we'll get that out to parents in a timely fashion so they know if in fact their child is not able to wear a mask, they'll know the process for how they appeal that. So safety and cleaning. We will have classes assigned locations on the playground to play. So at the elementary, it'll be easy in those common areas to trace who was where and who was in what grouping. You'll be assigned 2 blocks of time a day to take your kids out to recess, probably most likely not attached to lunch, and you'll be with one other group and you'll each have your assigned place on the playground. The recommendation is to make sure that all the high touch areas and playground equipment is cleaned minimally once a day, if not more than that. Students will wash their hands upon returning from recess, and games and any other equipment used during inside recess will be sanitized after each use. So moving on to the classrooms. Students will have assigned seating in all classrooms, and the seating chart that they select will be the same seating chart we will keep for an extended period of time. Desks will be spaced apart to the extent possible to achieve 6 feet social distancing when possible. However, students will be separated by a minimum of 3 feet. So this is the recommendation coming from the health department. I'll send you guys that document tonight or in the morning as well. It's also an attachment on one of these slides. It kind of outlines everything the health department has put forward. I think it's on their website too. All desks, when possible, will be positioned so students are not facing each other. Teachers will remain 6 feet from students whenever possible. The classroom occupancy listed on here is what's in our negotiated agreement. However, we will have to go by the size of the classroom, what can fit in there to make sure the kids are socially distanced apart, as well as some of that is going to depend on how many kids choose the remote learning option. The more kids that go remote, the classes get smaller and smaller. So there will not be kids in a classroom that exceed the requirements set forth by the health department. We'll have to figure out an alternative option. So that's that. Desks and high-tech surfaces will be cleaned and sanitized at least one time during the school day and when school ends. We are working with Rick to purchase all sorts of cleaning supplies, and we do have that spray that you can spray and you don't have to wipe down. So that will be easy for teachers to utilize between classes if you're at the secondary level. Students cannot share items, so there will be no shared supplies. This applies more down at the elementary. And then all equipment used by multiple kids, science lab, gym, computers, that has to be cleaned after each use. Go ahead, Kathy.
So if, like a class has if we don't have, if a student doesn't have the means to purchase their very own graphing calculator at the high school, and they are using one of the school's issued ones, that's theirs for the year. It can't be used in another math class later on. Is that?
So I don't know, Tana knows if they check those out full time. If they don't check them out
They
full-time,
don't.
it'll have to be cleaned. If we don't have enough, and maybe we can look at, how many we have, et cetera. I don't know how many we have. But if it's not assigned to that kid permanently, then it would have to be cleaned between each use if it was going to another student.
And my follow-up to that would be textbooks. If we have one set and 4 sections of kids using,
And we do.
are we copying pages out of textbooks so that we aren't using? That's just a.
That's a good question. We'll have to talk about that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of classroom sets.
Yeah, we have a lot of class sets of textbooks, so we'll need to see who utilizes them in what fashion, how many they have, and what we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good.
Thank you.
So symptomatic students. Okay, so this kind of breaks down into a couple of different sections because you could have a child with a fever that has, does not have anything to do with COVID. And typically they need to be fever-free for 72 hours. But in this situation, they have to have at least 10 days pass since their symptoms began before that child can come back to school if they had a fever. On the opposite side, if a child tests positive for COVID, they cannot return to school until they'll be quarantined by the health department, which is a minimum of 14 days. And we'll talk about contact tracing in a minute. But they cannot be returned to school until they've been checked out by the school, the parent, the nurse, and given a release from the health department. And that kind of goes the same with staff or students. If you notice on the right side, there's going to be an isolation period. The health department is going to provide written and verbal communication to the parents of any students with a confirmed case of COVID, any staff member. Those will not be permitted to return to school activities until their isolation period has ended. And then at the end, it also says any individual waiting on results from COVID test will be allowed to return to school, will not, or will be. That's right. Will not. It should be will not. We'll have to fix that. Someone's we don't forget. Will not be allowed to return to school while the test results are pending. So one thing we talk about tomorrow morning, we're going to put out an FAQ to the community based on the questions they submitted. And one of the questions asked on that was, if my child was to get COVID and be sent home, could they participate in remote learning? And the answer to that is yes. If your child has COVID and is at home, we're going to make it work for you to receive remote learning so you don't go without school for a few weeks. So that will be the exception to the rule. And that's in the document going home tomorrow. But
Well, even the fever here for 10 days
Yeah.
is a long time to go without school.
yeah, if you're going to be
Right.
gone for a substantial amount of time, we will make sure you have remote learning.
Okay.
Right, can you clarify, they gotta be fever-free for 72 hours, and then at least 10 days since,
The symptoms, yep.
so
That's per
is
the
it
health department.
10 days after the fever is
I
done?
would say when you first started, whatever symptoms, maybe your symptom wasn't even the fever, maybe it's something else.
Okay.
If we knows, I don't know. When you're 10 days from that first sign of whatever, then you can return to school.
So if your fever is your only symptom,
Good
day
3 days.
one starts when you get the fever.
Right.
And then if it's gone in 24 hours, you still have the other 9 days.
To get through.
And that's the way I read it.
That's my understanding from the health department.
And my follow-up question to that, is fever the only symptom that we worry the 10 days for? Or if you have a dry
No.
cough,
No.
that's it?
No, that's not the only symptom. There are
Okay.
a lot of symptoms. Do you think it would be helpful to include some of those on there?
Or maybe change it to, a child sent home with a fever or any other symptom
Okay.
related? I don't
But you
know.
but if,
How are we gonna differentiate that?
yeah. I mean,
this is
because
coming
if
right
they've,
from the health
if they've
department's
got the
guidance,
sniffles,
Because they got allergies.
because they got
Yeah.
allergies, they don't need to be out of school for 10 days.
No, I would agree.
And I mean,
I can
stomach
ask-
bugs are
Yeah,
pretty
they-
clear that they're just stomach
That's right.
bugs.
If
Yeah.
your kid throws up, you don't have to be out of school for 10 days.
I can ask
I
Chad
mean, I don't wanna
from the health
be-
department for a little additional guidance
I mean, kids get
to
sick,
address that. I can ask him.
you know.
Need some,
Yeah.
That's,
little extra.
we need a little more
Extra something,
clearance
something.
on this
All
one.
right, I will
Casey,
reach out to him.
Yeah.
for some
sorry,
guidance.
can you also add this? If your child has one of these symptoms and they go to the doctor and they get tested for strep throat or the flu and it comes back positive as one of those, and the incubation time, I'm not a doctor, the time
Yeah.
to get over those illnesses may be less than 10 days if they have a positive, not COVID test done and it's strep throat or something that clearly they can get over in 10 days, could that also diminish that
10 days.
10 days?
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Like, I got
Yeah,
a
'cause
positive flu
once you're on
A,
24 hours
I got
of
treated,
antibiotics,
and
then
5
you're
days
clear of
later I'm
strep.
better.
Okay, I'll get some clarity from Chad, and I will work very diligently to do that before this document goes out.
Okay.
Because if there's confusion among us, there will be confusion
Yeah.
in the community as well. Okay, so communication of COVID cases. So, to reiterate again, parents are expected to adhere to all recommended health checks prior to school day. If there's a confirmed case and it's identified as a student or staff member, the health department will contact the school in order to determine close contacts of the individual. Now, might I also add that there will be a liaison at the district level at each building that we have to submit to the health department. That will be their go-to person for anything back or forth. Like, we suspect, they have a case, so there will be direct people they will work with. They do say they categorize close contact as being 6 feet for 15 minutes. So no longer than 15 minutes, for longer than 15 minutes, sorry. So if you're passing in the hallways, they're not considering that close contact because that's not for 15 minutes, not over extended period of time. So once they establish who has been impacted, etc., all individuals who meet their definition of close contact, they'll be quarantined for 14 days from the date of exposure to the individual. They will send out written and verbal communication to all the parents of close contacts that we had a confirmed case and to any staff member identified. One thing they said, which I think is important to know, is one case of COVID in the school building will not prompt an immediate shutdown. The Lincoln County Health Department will work with the Ohio Department of Health and the schools to figure out when we would be at such a place where we would have to shut down a building. So I know that that was a concern by a lot of
But
families.
essentially, if our classrooms are only 3 feet apart, any kid in the classroom with
falls into this
would
category.
fall into that.
No, because if you're sitting in the front of me
Oh.
where Kathy's at, and I'm sitting back here,
Okay,
we should not be together for 15 minutes at 6 feet.
okay.
She should be in her desk, and I should be back here
Which
in
is
my
the
desk.
purpose for the assigned seats.
So that's
Okay.
why the seating charts have to remain the same.
Right, so you
Same
know which
class.
kids are,
So then you'll know, it's kind of your
It's
circle
these-
around you.
it's Kathy and I, but it's not Rick and Casey if
Okay.
you've got the code,
Yeah.
basically.
So
That's right.
I'm gonna go really crazy here for a second.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
so sorry.
no, we're not gonna take any crazy tonight. I'm sorry.
So I'm worried about, not worried, the question is around the middle school and the high school. Are those kids, for their 4 core classes, going to be in one classroom, for all 4 of those classes, or will they switch?
No, they will not be in one classroom. Now, the middle school, maybe that's a possibility because they're looking at going back to teams to eliminate the amount of movement of kids.
Okay.
So they're working on that schedule.
So then follow up to that, if kid that tests positive in classroom 1 is sitting within the 6 feet of Rick, and Rick goes to a different classroom,
It doesn't work that way, he said.
okay,
No, it doesn't work that way.
so Rick was within that 6 feet, so his parents get a letter.
It's only, it's not as if like, look, so, you know, I'm sitting near Deb and Deb has COVID. So I'm one of those 6 feet, but then I go to the next class and I sit near Rick. Well, I have not
She's
been
not tested
for
positive.
COVID. So it
Okay,
doesn't, it's
it's
not
only
that
this
like
one.
chain, like effect.
I
like
just
that.
know the question will come up at some point, so
Right.
wanted to ask.
But that one, I don't know about feasibility, but that is not a bad idea to talk about the teams in the middle school. That would definitely help diminish some of our movement. So I wrote that down.
That is something Columbus is
Yeah,
considering
that's a good idea.
and doing as
That's
well.
a really good idea. So we can look at that. I don't know if high school is possible. We can look at that. So that's a good idea. We haven't thought of it. So thank you.
All right.
So I wrote that down. Okay, social and emotional health. So obviously this is, one of the big things, and I'm sure all of you have seen it as well, and I've been reading about it, is just how hard this is on a lot of kids. So, Dan is going to work, well, we're all going to work, but with the counselors and the social workers to make sure we have services available for all kids, remote and in person. We're still going to be doing school wellness and support groups. We've committed to making sure that students that want to participate in things like Rocks or Drug-Free Club can do so, whether it's through a Zoom or whether it's in person. We're still moving into the K-12 social emotional learning curriculum this year, and Labor Days will be spent heavily on self-care this year for our staff. That will probably take precedent over a lot of other things that were initially planned. So it's a lot going on to teach during this situation. Visitors and volunteers, no visitors and volunteers until further notice, unless, a prior appointment. I mean, there could be extenuating circumstances where somebody needs to meet the principal, they don't have the ability to Zoom, so obviously there are always, exceptions to the rule. IEP meetings and 504s, et cetera, we're gonna highly encourage you to be online. If a family doesn't have that ability or is not interested, we will obviously make sure that there's an opportunity for them to come in person. We put down a little note too, this is something that has been asked a lot. There will not be field trips. We'll reevaluate in January and see where we're at. This means that the 5th grade camp will not be happening in the fall. We do have a secondary date of March 1st through 3rd reserved. So that is already reserved. We'll let the camp know, and then we'll cross our fingers that the kids get to go in March, because I know that's a really big deal to students, and I
What were those
understand that.
dates again for?
March 1st through 3rd. And we did put that on our FAQ for the community.
Thank you.
So this has been another question asked a lot about the WILD program. We'll still have, and again, this presentation is both for you guys as well as everybody else in the community. We'll still have WILD before and after school care, but they will be limited on the amount of kids until the governor's order changes, if it does. So I included the number down there for families to call if they need to get on the registration list. That was a question asked by a lot of families, like, will my kids still be able to go to childcare?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you.
You're fine.
Again. 18 to 36 is
That's
a big number,
I know,
like a
that's-
big difference.
That's the numbers I was given.
All right.
Yep, I thought that too. I don't know if there's different things that it's based on. I'm not sure.
Maybe it depends on which location.
Could be location, size of the rooms.
I think they,
Oh, age.
There you go.
oh, okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's like, cause they all meet in the cafeterias, they're about the same size,
Okay.
I think.
Age makes more sense, doesn't it? There we go.
Okay, transportation. Couple of things. I'm gonna get my notes out too. So here's these, this has kind of been shared. Obviously, parents are supposed to screen their kids, 2 to a seat, everybody, K through 12 wears mask. They suggest as far as social distancing is concerned, one sits as close to the window, one sits in the aisle. The bus drivers have to wear face coverings unless they meet one of the exceptions. They're suggesting keep the windows open for ventilation, obviously weather permitting. We will have hand sanitizer on each bus, the automated ones, right, Rick? Like once you put your hand up, they come out. There will be extra time because of the school day now. We already have time built in the middle of our school day, not for cleaning, but for the bus drivers. But there will be additional time now with elementary moving back. So they should have an additional 15, 20 minutes to do a cleaning of their bus before they go pick up their next route. And then that's just a note for families. They have to get the back to school portal completed by August 10th. But I wanted to share 2 things to kind of put in your mind in case we get to this place. So we don't currently have everyone hasn't filled out their survey for what they're doing in their plans. So we can't put more than 2 kids to a seat unless it's siblings, and the amount of kids in the same grade levels of 3 or more is not very great. So if we cannot fill, if we have too many kids for our 41 routes for 2 per to a seat, we're going to have to look at other options. So there's no reason to make a decision today, but things that are going through our minds and we're talking about are, if we have to add extra routes on for the elementary, that would mean the potential of eliminating high school busing and moving the intermediate to the same time as the middle school. They would follow their route, and then the K through 3 would be at the same time. Another option to consider, if that's not favorable, because it's not a great option, is to look at state minimums. We bus a lot of kids that we don't have to. So these are 2 things. I hope we don't get there. I hope we're able to bus all the kids that want busing. I will be able to know that by next Wednesday at the latest. But then we're gonna have to have some conversations and figure out what direction we wanna go. I can bring a recommendation, but I definitely think I'll be looking to you for some feedback on that, because that's big. Yeah, so hopefully it doesn't get there. But
Okay.
We'll need to schedule a special
That's what I was
board
gonna say. We're gonna need a
That's not
special board
fun.
meeting between now and,
August.
Well, why don't we
Something.
wait and see where we're at on Wednesday, or we can tentatively schedule one if you want. But that is one area I do think, transportation is very important to our families. I understand that. It's important to myself as well. But we have to do it in the requirements and the guidelines. So hopefully we don't get there, but if we are.
Have we discussed with the other superintendents who may have more people picking up and dropping off, and may have more free buses?
Yeah, I don't think that's.
You don't think that would work?
No, this has been an ongoing topic, and yeah. I feel like the things that we're struggling with,
Everybody is,
or like
so it's not an option.
Keith has like 8 buses, and they, so they don't have the fleet we have.
Gotcha.
Things like that. So, I'm, tomorrow morning, every family in the entire district will get a email saying this is your commitment, what you've made. If you want to change it, you have till Wednesday of next week, and then we're locking down whether it's remote or in person, and the busing. And so then we're gonna meet after that and take a look at what our numbers are and see. We might be completely okay. I just wanna put it out there so you kind of have it in your mind. We may have to talk about it.
Are we working to reach out to the families that haven't taken the survey?
Well, we've sent a couple different communications,
Okay.
but tomorrow everybody will we're gonna send a remind text, and then we're gonna send them an email with their choice or you haven't chosen yet. I will say that we've gotten a lot the last few days. I feel pretty good about the percent that's filled in. I think we have quite a few that are, even though it was technically due today, are still waiting for additional information. So what we put out to the community tomorrow, I cannot give them anything more than that for them to make their decision. We're kind of at a max capacity currently. Okay, food service. So breakfast will be served in all buildings. It will look a little different in each building. We're still kind of working on how to maximize the kids that are around each other. Elementary, we are going to have them delivered to their classroom. We are gonna have to, unfortunately, reduce the amount of options available. It's just not feasible to have as many selections in that kind of format. The secondary, they will be serving lunch through the cafeteria, but kids will be eating in a lot of different places. And they're adding lunches, so it's gonna be spaced out, additional opportunities. Some will eat in the cafeteria, some will eat in classrooms. Both the buildings are currently working on that configuration to how to space kids out with X's at the tables, for how they can sit with assigned seats. So we're kind of working on those details.
Stupid
Yes.
question again.
Yeah, I have one for this too.
If a classroom is also being served as a cafeteria for a lunch period, is there a monitor going to be in place in that room? That
I mean, there will be someone that have to supervise classrooms, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
also, they're not going to be wearing their masks, obviously, while they're eating. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing the 3 feet has got to be a more definite 6 or higher in those situations. Because, you know, I accidentally swallow my milk and it causes me to down the wrong pipe, and it causes me to cough, and now I'm coughing outwardly without it. You know, I'm just thinking I don't know. That's just where I'm.
Okay, well, yeah, well,
It's just something to bring up to the team.
I agree.
That's all.
Yep, I agree. A couple of things more to add on food service, just in case it answers a question you might have. We are going to move to cashless, so there will not be, that's what a lot of districts seem to be doing to eliminate the filth of money, and then also it just makes a quicker process. It is gonna take longer to give kids food when having to keep them spaced apart. We're gonna not, and these things are just, for this year, you know, this is not like a normal, obviously. We're gonna get rid of the courtesy lunches. So we're gonna charge limits for 2 in each building, and then we'll be eliminating that cheese because it's the sake of simplicity of delivering kids, you know, the food without having an extra option. You know, they'll continue to accept donations, which they always have, to help offset those negative balances and reaching out to parents, and I think Cindy and Carmen do a really good job with that. And then I put in there no a la carte in K through 3, so they're just removing that option for the youngest kids because it's time consuming and it makes more work on them, because we're not going to have additional cafeteria staff, so we'll have to work with, you know, the confines of what we have.
Now, with breakfast being served in all buildings, will every child get a breakfast then?
No.
Only those that want one or required to have one?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're working on what that looks like.
Okay, that's
That's a little up in the air right now.
my other question. If we're going completely cashless, a family would have to put money on an account via credit card, or could they still write a check in?
Well, they can write a check or,
Okay,
We have the ability to pay online.
okay, right.
I know they have that.
There is a convenience fee that they have to pay. with
Right.
that, So,
That's what I was getting at. If
but
that
they can
was-
write a check. That'd be
Okay,
fine.
if that was the
I
only
think the cash is
option,
just the
then
back and forth, the back and forth.
I
The
don't-
check is,
I have a problem with the fee, but I would have more of a problem with the fee if there wasn't a check.
yeah, I
option.
think a check is fine. I think that doesn't, I think it still takes care of what they're trying to reduce on their end while still offering an option to our families.
With the high school kids, you know, if we're letting kids come in and leave, they're not gonna be eating at school. I mean, the number of kids at high school
I would agree.
that are gonna eat in the cafeteria are gonna be down to like virtually nothing.
So you may have less classroom stuff to worry
I
about.
think you're not gonna have
But
any
that's
classroom
why we
story
think the
about
cafeteria
eating.
will work at the secondary, at the
Yeah,
high school.
yeah,
Again, we're not gonna know until they get in there and start doing schedules. and
right,
Reaching
right,
out to kids for the requirements, but
correct.
yeah, we're
I think you're gonna be down
anticipating
to
Can,
little tiny bits. Go ahead, yeah.
can you re-clarify what you just stated about the courtesy meals? Because I heard it one way, and then I think what you meant was the second way I heard it. When you said eliminating courtesy meals,
No more cheese sandwich courtesy.
you're
lunches.
just
They're
They're
gonna get
still
a
gonna get
lunch.
a meal.
They're just
It's
gonna get
not
the
gonna be
regular
the
lunch.
cheese
They're gonna
sandwich
get
thing.
whatever
Gotcha.
is being served that day. Whatever, if there's one option or two at elementary, you don't have funds, you're getting the same sack lunch as everybody else.
Yep, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And we'll try to collect it, or
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
try
I
to
mean,
take care of the
Absolutely,
some way.
yes. No, they do a great
Yeah.
job with that, and
Yeah.
that will continue.
Perfect. Perfect.
And so then there will be another, questions for the community, an additional link, I found, or I should say we found collectively, that was a really nice way in lieu of, it's hard on social media to keep up with all the questions. So we appreciate the community. We had a lot, of questions on our most recent link, and we appreciate that. And like I said, we're gonna put out that FAQ in the morning. It's quite lengthy. I mean, it's like 5 pages of questions. So it has a lot of information.
And if they weren't answered, it does say that if they weren't included in the document, they'd be answered directly, right?
Yeah, so this is another link, we're gonna give them a second chance, like if you see things again, or maybe your question got missed. Some people we've been responding to individually if it's not something that is for the greater good, or, but if somehow it got missed, they can submit it again, and we'll, respond back to them either individually, or we'll put out another FAQ. It just depends how many questions we get the second round. So we'll have to see how that kinda goes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, you're not done, I thought this was
That's it,
the
no,
last
that's
slide.
fine, it is, I just.
Is there, if a staff member has a question, they can use this link too?
Oh, they can, so the, SLE worked with, all of their members to take questions, and then they kind of, consolidate that into a document and send it to me as well. So we've been working on it, but we've been starting with the community first. So when I communicate tomorrow to the staff, I'll let the teachers know that their questions that were submitted, they will all have answers to on Monday. That document will be shared with the staff on Monday. Tomorrow, the community one will go first. Some of them have already been answered through this presentation and in the FAQ that goes out tomorrow, but there are still others that are not applicable to our families, but are important to our staff. So that document will go out Monday.
Can you go back to the one slide with that had the colors, the different colors, red and.
Yeah. Can you just put it back to the beginning, Jeff? Because it's like right there at the beginning, so.
Oh, hang on a second. I think you ended the slideshow once you did, so I got started all over again.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Here we go. Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. My concern about this is I'm not sure that people are gonna understand that 1 and 2 associate with the bottom purple, and that level
Okay.
3 and 4 associate with the green.
Something
Yeah.
that breaks it up a little
Well,
better.
You know what, to be honest, we're not, one of the parts that's coming out, we're not including that decision-making process because that's not relevant to the community per se, so we can put it at the top as well.
Okay,
We can add that as like a header.
Yeah.
Right?
just so people understand if we're
Yes.
red or purple, we're remote learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That was
Okay.
coming
We're
off
all
anyways.
remote learning on red and
Right.
purple.
Yes, we'll put all.
We
can add
all,
that.
yeah.
Yep, that's not a problem.
That
Does that include the ELC?
It'll fill.
Yeah.
we are all remote learning on red and purple.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, I just didn't, the ELC didn't seem that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's everybody. Correct. I mean, that is
And
ELC
I'll put
too.
in there at the top
Yeah.
of it, we'll put
Yeah.
PK through 12.
Yep.
Yeah. That where if Licking County is on a level 1 or 2, you get the all-in option of come to school or remote, including ELC. And if you're under a level 3 or a level 4, everybody's doing their remote
Okay,
schedule.
I'm just gonna throw this out there because I'm afraid it'll come up.
Yeah.
We have some kids that live in Fairfield County. If Licking County is in red or purple, we go with this, even if, I'm sorry, if Licking County is in yellow or orange, but Fairfield is not, we're still going with this.
Yes, because our schools are.
Is in Licking County. I just wanted to say that out loud.
That's what's good.
Yep.
And we probably have some people that may actually, do we have anybody that lives in Franklin County? No, okay. Oh, no, that would be.
Deb, did you have another question?
No.
Because I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I promise this is it.
I have a list of questions.
Oh, well.
John, we got a paper.
She said, stop me at any time. That's why I asked throughout the whole
He's got
thing.
questions.
If a family member, if a student's family does not wish to comply with the health department's orders of tracing and whatnot, how are they handled?
That's a good question.
Okay. Like they're not willing to, you know, have that letter sent or stay home because they were in a quarantine situation because they were in a all that one slide, and they send their kid to school anyway.
I will ask.
How do we handle that? I mean, it wouldn't be a discipline because a kid's going because mom and dad said so, but
Right. Yeah, let me ask. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but I'll
Okay.
get one.
that was it. Go ahead, John. Take it away.
Okay, John.
Some of it kind of has evolved as I was thinking of things, I was writing it down. Some have already been answered as we go. But we specified if it's level 3 or 4, it will be all online.
Yes.
Can a child start at school and decide, I want to go online now at
Yes.
any time?
Yes, so that's also listed tomorrow. So at any time, you can go from in-person to remote, but when you make a commitment to remote learning, you're making it per semester.
Okay.
Till the January. So if parents start their kid in school and they feel a level of discomfort, it will be not a problem to remove to remote learning. It may take a day to switch it over, and I put that in the document, but that will not be an issue.
Okay. And we will be able to provide Chromebooks and whatnot to the families
Yes.
that need it for remote.
Yes.
And the same with food, right?
We're working on food.
Okay.
We're getting mixed reviews. First we were told yes, then we were told no. So we don't have a definitive answer on that, what that looks like, because we're getting conflicting
Okay.
information
From
from various sources. OBE.
okay.
Yeah. So we can't. We've heard both ways now. So
Okay.
we've got to get some clarification on what that looks like.
Okay. You're good. For middle school, we were talking, you do your block of 4 and then electives are optional. If a kid does elect to stay the entire day, they will not have 4 study halls in their 4 core, right?
They will not have 4 study halls, but I can't guarantee they won't have 2
Okay,
because the numbers have to be significantly smaller in the electives.
right.
But the hopes are that the kids that want to leave and have the ability will. The other
Right.
ones that maybe don't have that option and are staying will be able to find something for them to do.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just concerned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, I agree.
Could happen. So we talked a little bit about accommodations for our students. Are we also making sure that if we need to provide some sort of accommodation for the student, that it's a safe accommodation for the staff as well, dealing with that student?
I can speak a little bit, because really, when we talk about our complex classrooms, is where I have the most concern.
Should we have him use a mic so everyone can hear?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan.
That's kind of a bad idea.
Or if he speaks very loudly,
He could come sit
I
in
can
Roger's
move.
seat.
I can move, and you can
Sit in
here.
Roger's seat.
Yeah.
So we've already put out to our complex classrooms, those teachers, additional PPE that we're willing to order for them. We're also saying, hey, if there's something that you find that you would be comfortable, and especially because a lot of our complex classrooms are hand over hand, physically touching students. So we've even talked a little bit about, like, if you've seen some of those surgeon that, almost vests they get into, so that they're completely shielded from any bodily fluids. Another thing is we've ordered the freestanding, like, plexiglass for our speech pathologists. We've given them the choice of, hey, any face shield that you feel like you need, any mask. They have the see-through masks even that they have. So, and also with our psychologists, we've offered the same thing. So we're trying to be proactive. We did hear back from Licking County today that they have not issued specific guidance on complex students yet. So Chad just sent an email to the Licking County ESC. They don't have specific guidance on that, but I think we'll get something closer. But on our end, we're purchasing essentially any equipment that they're requesting.
Okay. Thank you.
And to add, not with that, but just purchasing equipment, we're also going to be getting face shields for choir. So that will take care of a lot of the concerns we've heard from the choir teachers. So we just have to figure out how to store them. So it's kind of
But each kid would have
their own. Yeah, that'd be sharing.
Yeah,
They'll have their own, yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a
No,
little
we're not gonna wipe it
spitty.
down and shit. Yeah, no, that's not gonna help.
All right. So if a kid refuses to wear a mask, what happens? Is that considered insubordination?
It is
or-
considered insubordination, and we Rick and I have a conference call for an unrelated topic with the attorney on Monday, and that's gonna be a question, that I'm going to ask too, because we're not gonna have teachers spinning their wheels with the same students, especially when we have a remote option. It's not so much to me about the discipline, it's, well, now you can go be a remote learner because you can't
Right.
follow the rules.
Right.
Because we are gonna have some of that, and I'm not gonna have, someone put at risk another child or that teacher, because a kid continues to not comply.
Because it's kind of like the dress code. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
kids
is.
are not supposed to wear hats, and
Right.
they go down the hall, hey, take your hat off, and then as soon as they turn the corner,
So I anticipate, and we've talked a lot about this in the county, there are gonna be some issues. I think we'd be naive to think there are not.
Right.
Okay. This is probably my biggest concern, and that's the K1 and K1 not being required to have masks. My concern is those students generally are the ones that need a little more hands-on, teacher being close to them, hugging them, etc. And with us only doing 3 feet of distancing instead of 6 with no mask, that just concerns me. Now I know some of those numbers will be alleviated when we find out how many choose online, and 23 would be the max. But even 23 seems really high for K1, considering those students won't have any masks.
I don't disagree. I think we can look specifically in our large kindergarten rooms. I'm sure we can get them further apart. I don't know about the other classrooms. We'll have to look.
I'm thinking something, how, I know that you may or may not want them move, how much movement, but K1 kids you're gonna have them moving some. And I know Dan mentioned some of the freestanding plexiglass. I'm thinking some of the freestanding plexiglass for some of their rounded
like,
tables.
to create carols.
Create
yeah.
some dividers for when they're in their little,
Yep.
I mean, some of that may just be
Yeah, we can look into that, absolutely.
just,
And we'll look into how far apart can we get them in those classrooms. I know we can do it in the big ones. I feel confident about that. I don't know about more of the first grade rooms. I don't know about those or the nods.
and
It's also not against the rules to recommend masks.
that's what I was gonna say.
Even
Maybe
at
we
a
can-
K1 level.
Yeah, is
Maybe we
there
can
a
just
reason
say-
we can't require them?
What?
K1?
There's not a reason we can't require them. It's just not recommended by the health department because of the age. I think even the governor said 10 and older, which that's a little old to me. I think a couple of years younger the kids can wear them, but there's not a reason. No, just the recommendations is purely based on, and kind of the commitment as a county to kind of all aligned with that. But there's not a reason if we felt strongly about that we couldn't go in a different direction. I do think it's going to be really hard to keep those kids in.
I think it's
I
going to be
think it would
hard
be
to
too.
look at my mask. Do you want to try it on?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, watch this.
Mine has Pokemon on it.
But
Let me put it over my head
treat that building a little bit differently and really look for additional ways to provide some extra protection
Divide.
for the teachers and the kids.
Yeah.
That's
So
why
Yes.
I do think we can do that.
okay, like maybe 6 feet for that building? Or
Yeah, I
is
feel
that-
good about those kindergarten classrooms. I don't know about the first grade. We gotta get in there and look.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a lot better idea of what we're looking at numbers wise once the final survey closes on Wednesday. That's gonna give us a much bigger picture. So I can report back and share that with you.
All right. And then I'm almost done here.
Yeah, because I added 2 things.
I know, I added something too.
Yeah, whoa.
With kids, I talked about this last month, but I'm just curious. With kids eating in the classroom and whatnot, generally we only have one daytime custodian. Are we going to be adding staff or rearranging time so there's more people there to clean during the day when the kids are actually in the building?
Yes, so we have a meeting scheduled, I believe it's Monday of next week, with Kevin from maintenance. We are going to be looking at hours and maybe shifting an additional custodian up till the day. We also went ahead and allocated, in case we need extra hours, into our CARES fund for custodians, so that's a possibility as well. But Mike's going to meet with Kevin on Monday and a couple of head principals and start thinking about what do we need, what do we need to make this work for additional restroom cleaning, for the cafeteria, all the food. So yes,
Okay.
there's going to be some change. I just don't know exactly what that looks like yet.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you.
I'm gonna go.
It didn't matter.
I'll go since it backs up on Kevin. So,
I had that, I just took it off.
Everybody has that.
so my question, I guess, for Kevin would be, what is he doing? I know that there's a lot of different studies in reference to the airflow. And are we changing how we maintain our filters? Are we changing them more frequently? Has he been able to identify specific classrooms that we say, okay, the airflow is really kind of sucks in here? What can we do to manage that?
That's a great question. That's part of Mike's meeting on Monday.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of a little short list of what we're looking at maintenance wise, what needs to be done, what's the plan for installing the hand sanitizing stations when they arrive, a whole little list of things that he's gonna be working with Kevin on.
Okay.
So I can have Mike follow up with everybody once he
Okay.
gets some little bit of additional information. And there's some things that Kevin might not have the answers yet either, he's gotta figure out, but
All buildings do have air now, though, right? Because I know last year at the middle school we had some issues at the beginning of the year.
I have not heard that they don't have air. I know the high school air was shut off because of the flooring, but
Right.
I've not heard someone doesn't have air.
Okay, I just wanted
It might
to.
not be good.
I mean, I don't know what that temperature is or what that air is, but I have not heard.
New units.
Okay.
Okay. I just thought if you're required to wear a mask and there not be
No, I
Yeah,
get.
air
that could be
conditioning,
bad.
I think the middle school's good right now. My mom's
Yeah,
been
we're
taken
okay.
to guided
Ah,
tutoring,
okay,
and she
okay,
has not
okay.
been complaining at all. So that's I would know if the middle school did not have air conditioning. So
Yeah, I'd like to know what that, maintenance and filters and all that good stuff. Got it.
Was that it?
Mhm.
I only have 3. Back to the color block, red, blue, red, purple closed, yellow, orange. You have the 2 options. We were orange yesterday, and we're red today, and we could be orange again
Yep.
Friday.
correct.
What if we're bouncing back? Are we opening, closing? We could go.
I mean,
How-
I don't know.
Okay.
So I guess we're gonna talk about that.
It was just a thing that
I mean,
I could be
had.
wrong, but I think once you're a color, you're that color for 7 days.
Okay.
Oh,
we can find
well.
that out.
But
I think-
don't quote me on that. But
I think he may be correct in that because you have to have a certain percentage of new cases. You have to, I think, with the way the governor said it, you have to have a certain decrease over a certain period of time in order to come back down on the system. I think
I
is
know
how it
Hamilton
was.
County lost
Is
their
that right?
star, so I'm all good.
That's right, and I think they give you 24 hours notice before they.
To get.
But before they drop it off, right?
Before they
Because
drop
we
it off.
actually don't go to red until tomorrow at midnight or something. Yeah.
So
So I think that's right.
We'll be red till next Thursday.
We'll be red till
Okay.
next
Right.
Thursday.
Okay.
Right.
So like if that was the case, we'd probably say you're remote home until Friday. We're not gonna go. We can't be
Right.
bouncy around
No.
like that.
Okay.
That would confuse everybody.
Yeah.
Parents specifically.
All right, I'll move fast then. I think you may have touched on this already, but we're doing all these different efforts to get the 894 that haven't, or 854 that haven't answered the survey. What if we get down to it and we have,
No, those are kids, not parents. Just so you know.
I'm sorry.
Just make sure. I just want to clarify.
The non-survey students that haven't answered, and we do to every length to get them to answer, and we have 230 kids left. Are we saying, okay, you haven't answered your remote?
No, we're saying you haven't answered. You're coming to school in person
Okay,
on a school bus. That's what we're gonna assume.
okay. And then my last question, and I'm guessing maybe there aren't answers yet. So some of the electives at the high school and middle school, have there been determinations on, food arts, visual arts?
Not on food. We haven't talked about that class yet. We're gonna need to talk about that. Obviously, that's
Arts where you absolutely have to share materials, like the pottery wheels and the
Yeah.
paintbrushes and the.
They're working to see what those classes look like and what we can and cannot do. The food is one we need to talk about, so I wrote that down.
And band and choir. I know you addressed choir a little
Yeah,
bit.
we've talked a little bit about choir, the band room. Mike's working with Ryan and Melissa on that room, and they actually pretty spaced out. Think that they can have a significant amount of kids in there per the band instructors. So he's kind of taking the lead on that, working with them, and also working with Rob on what band season may look like. That's another
Yeah.
topic
Yeah,
as
that
well.
came out today.
So that has been a good topic of conversation, just the food. Have you spoken about the food yet? I have not spoken about, so we need to do that, so I wrote that down.
They can maybe adjust their curriculum and do it.
Yeah, they're gonna have to do something else, they're not gonna be cooking, so.
That's
That won't be
fine.
a very fun elective.
I'll let my sophomore know that maybe international foods is what he might want to opt not to take today.
Or they might need to
semester.
do individual mini quiches instead of
Yeah,
one
maybe-
quiche to
Yeah,
share,
maybe they can
or
be creative.
you know, individual blah blah blahs. Instead, I mean,
And
they
there
may
may
just
be
have to mix up what they're making instead of
Still, the ovens.
Ovens.
the oven.
That
You
and
would still.
how do you know the person before you cleaned it properly?
Well, I mean, you would have to make sure of all that. I mean,
There
you're
may
going to
be
have to think
certain-
about it. Is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to think about it.
And I'm guessing there's also certain electives like these that won't be available for a remote learner.
Yes.
Well, you can do whatever you want in your
Well,
own
yeah.
kitchen.
But you may not have a pottery wheel for art class.
Yeah,
if you-
there will be,
That is
yeah,
correct.
there's gonna be electives that you're not gonna be able to take.
Yes.
I mean, I think they're committed to, and this is on Q&A tomorrow, committed to working with the band and the choir kids at the high school to make sure they offer some sort of way to include them, to work with them. I don't think they have it figured out yet, at least at 9 to 12.
Okay.
So that is one thing they're gonna try to do.
Okay, that was it.
Any other questions on that one? A few more.
Yes. All right. Now let's go to the calendar.
Right, so I'm a visual person, so I printed one out for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Will you take one and pass it around, please? So, with all this craziness comes the need to change our calendar. So I've got some proposed changes that I want to talk to you about.
The calendar's attached too, so you can bring it up on the computer if you want.
I know, I just like my visual right in front of me. Richard.
Did you sterilize that paper before you hand it to him?
But
Okay,
John's got
so,
we're all good.
So I'm gonna go through all the changes and I'll explain as we go. So, proposed change number 1 is to move the start of school back to August 24th. That would be the first day for A through K, and then the 25th would be L through Z, and then the 26th everyone would attend. For 2 reasons. Number 1, that will give us an extra week. We have to be prepared. I mean, right now, in the model we've chosen, we would be remote learning starting the school year. So regardless of who selects remote learning, we have to make sure all teachers and staff is ready to switch into that mode. The secondary level needs to be trained on in Mentum, how that works. And they also need to be trained on building procedures, setting their classroom, all that kind of stuff. And dividing the alphabet up. That way we have, half the kids there to go through the procedures and rules and all that kind of stuff on day 1. So that's the first recommended change. With that change comes the loss of instructional time. And we are unfortunately a little tight on instructional time this year, specifically in a couple of grade levels, like the 4 or 5, because of the extra week to move, because of the high school, the week that we're supposed to be getting out early. In addition, because of the reduction of the minutes in the school day. So that added up pretty quickly. So what I'm recommending is for the 3 waiver days, you'll see 1 in September, 1 in January, and 1 in March, that we will have those waiver days for staff, used for professional development as always, but those will be remote learning days for kids. So kids will be doing remote learning from home. And that helps us a little bit with the hours. I've also eliminated the K through 5 conference day in October. We're going to need kids to be in attendance that day for school, on top of the fact that we'll probably be recommending initially some Zoom meetings for conferences, etc. in the evenings. Then we go on down till January. We initially the 11th was a waiver day, so that's obviously being recommended to be a remote learning day. We will need the 4th and 5th graders. The teachers have that week, to move, to pack, all that kind of good stuff. We will need the 4th and 5th graders to have 2 remote learning days on the 7th and the 8th of January. So they'll just be working from home that day prior to coming back to school. So they'll have 3 extra days off, and then those 2 days will be remote learning days. Let's see here. Then on down towards the bottom, we've had to add 2 days onto the high school schedule the 17th and the 18th, initially that was off. We're gonna have to put those back on. That being said, just to kind of give an idea where we're at, everybody K through 8, this gives us almost exactly 5 days for calamity days. That's where we're at hours-wise, and I know historically, we've had plenty of wiggle room.
Right.
It gives us 3 point something, I don't know exactly the 3 point, I can't remember. 3.6. Thank you, 3.6 for our high school.
Oy.
So, I've also changed, if you'll notice down below,
This
in
is
the little
the year.
info, I put, like, these updates, I'll take them off when we bust it up, put it out to the community, but so you guys could see too. But I added calamity info, makeup days beyond allowable hours will be utilized as remote learning days. So if we have our 4th snow day and the high school is a half, they have a half of remote learning day. So it's too hard to put it on here per day what, because everyone's a little bit different, but it gives us 5 for everybody but the high school. So these are my recommendations that I would like you guys to vote on tonight to adopt the changes to the calendar so I can share this with the community, articulate the change in the start of school, make sure everybody kind of understands. Really, it doesn't change too much for kids besides the beginning of school, and adding 2 days for the high school, just a little bit of the remote learning days.
I have questions.
Yep.
I'm gonna start with the 2 remote learning days for the 4th and 5th grade in January. That would be their very first 2 days back from a very long winter break. If the teachers are in waiver personal development training,
They will not. Those aren't waiver days for teachers. That's a week for the teachers to move and set their classrooms, so they'll be responsible for.
okay, because I'm thinking they're gonna get online and do what exactly? They haven't been to school
Yeah.
since the end of the last quarter.
They'll have assignments and things. So
Okay.
maybe like review, getting them, prepped and ready to come back to school,
Gotcha.
some things like that.
Maybe learning the new rules at the new school kind of
Yeah, that's actually a
thing.
great idea.
My second question is when all students are remote learning for these R days. Let's say this goes back to orange and we never have to do remote learning. And maybe this is a question for the back to school thing as well. The students that are in-person learning and they've chosen that and they've never had to go home and they don't have the means at home, the Wi-Fi and the Chromebook, and they have like this single remote learning day. I assume we're going to make sure that the first R day is September 21st, that those students have what they need technology-wise if they don't have it at home.
Yeah, we can figure that out. I think that's fine.
And then my only other concern with that would be is, here's a Chromebook for you to use that day, and you don't have another remote learning day until January. And
we'd have to be strategic in how we work that out.
Yeah, that's just my only concern with the R's. I love the idea, but my concern would be the technology.
Maybe those remote learning days aren't Chromebook days. Maybe
That's
those remote
that's
remote
fine.
learning
I
day in
just wanna make
September
sure.
is some paper packets.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of
Or,
options.
you're remote
It doesn't-
learning
it
and you
doesn't
have
have
your,
to be.
in a high school, you gotta come back with this essay. Or,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it doesn't
fine.
it doesn't have to be a Google Chromebook remote learning for your September one. Maybe I'm just
No,
I'm
right.
but
I'm just bringing
obviously
it up.
just think. Yeah,
Okay, that was it.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Are there questions or concerns?
I watched you splash me and said, I better start breathing.
Sorry.
Start breathing.
Don't hold your
Breathe.
breath. Don't hold your breath anymore.
Okay.
But we didn't get a motion, we should have a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do we need a motion for it?
Yeah.
I'll motion approval of 9B.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Do we have we had approval from teachers on this yet, or now does it have to go to them for approval?
I don't think anything in there is violating anything in the negotiated agreement.
Okay.
Fine. So
Okay.
we're okay.
All
They
right.
didn't lose any of the waiver days or.
They're starting and ending at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
the teacher
Okay.
day is the same.
I didn't know if we.
So, no, I think we're okay.
Okay. Perfect. All right, Mr. Jones.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes. All right, that passes.
Okay, Diversity and Equality Committee. So I am really excited to share the news publicly that we will be having a diversity and equality committee for the upcoming school year. That will be led by Dan Ortiz, a community member. I'm not sure how many of you have met him or not, but I'm looking forward to you doing so. Hopefully he'll be able to join us once our board meetings are open back up to the public and come share some things with you guys. So basically he'll be working with the schools. In conjunction, we'll be utilizing some grant money to help pay for his services, a little bit of compensation, as well as any professional development, etc., that we bring in under him. So I guess kind of the process or the next step. So the first thing that's going to happen is he is going to work in collaboration with us on a kind of like a application per se for if you're interested in joining this committee. So there will be community members, there will be staff members, and there will be students. So kind of a three-tiered focus. Like students, their purpose, for them to have a voice. Parents to help, with the social unrest in the community. Our staff to help educate our kids. So he's going to work on that because obviously we can't have, in talking with him, he says the committee needs to be a certain size if it gets too large. So we'll kind of put some things out there for each of, the kids will have an application as well, and they'll have to, fill that out and write a little piece of why they want to join because, he's looking for a variety and he's looking for people with a passion that want to be a part of this in the district. There will be a staff kickoff in August. Obviously, I don't know what that looks like considering our times, but there will be some sort of kickoff in August. And then he'll work with the school in collaboration to have different themes each month. So, maybe one theme month will be implicit bias. Maybe there will be racism, beauty and diversity. So each month will be centered around something, how he works within our schools and with our kids and staff. He's committed to being in the district 2 days a week. That will look all different kinds of ways depending on what we're doing, as well as who's in school. And then he'll end the year with some sort of celebration, which I really liked that idea. I thought it was great to kick it off and then have all these plans and then kind of celebrate the successes and then start talking about, plans for moving forward. He'd like to have monthly committee meetings so they can kind of talk about the next month's plans, what we're going to do, for our kids and our community. And, he said the goal for the first year will be open conversation and education. We were hoping to do, some assemblies and some other things. Obviously, we'll have to see how that works out. We'll have to kind of play that by ear. So I was excited to share that. I'm excited for him to get started. I don't know if you have any questions about that. We're going to work on, Tanya's going to work with him to get a profile and to get some things put out to the community and our website to kind of share that so people kind of know what's coming. We'll probably do that once we have all the applications ready to roll, so it kind of all goes out at once. So, I don't know if you guys have any questions or
I actually have a question.
What did you eat before you came here?
Sorry.
I'm kidding.
It's quick. If a community member, staff member, student is interested in applying to be on the committee, where can they go? Is that
we'll put that out.
We will.
It'll
Okay.
all be, they've got to work on. He's going to work with Tan on the applications, kind of in the process, and then those will be shipped out. That'll go, the website to kids. We'll get that out multiple ways for people.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Okay, so that's just a sharing thing. And then I haven't updated you guys on enrollment, my last item, recently, so I kind of wanted to just give you, typically we don't do enrollment in summer months, but I did for my own self too, was curious to where we were at. So we actually haven't seen a 6-kid growth from May. However, we're at a place, for example, today, Kaylin had 7 of her appointments cancel of the 9. I think we have a lot of people waiting to see, and then I have a feeling our enrollment's gonna skyrocket. So I think they're out there. They're just kind of on pause right now. Probably like a lot of people for things. So
Kindergarten is especially low.
well, that's a little bit deceiving. So these are the numbers that have completed all of their paperwork and everything is documented.
Okay.
But on the flip side, we have, I think it's about 312, somewhere around there, that have started the enrollment process. So when I'm planning numbers for staffing and everything, I'm going by who started the process, because if you started it, eventually you're going to finish it. Typically.
Right.
So we're she always tracks the kindergarten in comparison to the year before. We're a little bit ahead this year. This looks, that's a little deceptive.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it, and now I am done talking. Thank you
And
very
I
much.
have no more questions.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of employment of a public employee.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Mrs. Engel?
Yes. We are in executive session at 8:40. We are back from executive session. It is 9:18. Mr. Jones, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Spindler?
Here.
Mr. Vincent?
Here.
Mr. Zani? Mrs. Engel?
Here, we have a quorum. We can continue. We have an evaluation of the treasurer and the superintendent. Ms. Moore, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, based on the evaluation of the Board of Education, both the superintendent and treasurer, based on our evaluations, were to receive a 2.5% performance raise. But both the superintendent and treasurer have declined their 2.5% performance raise and would rather align with what was given to staff and simply receive a one-time payment equal to what staff received. We appreciate the dedication and hard work both the superintendent and treasurer provide to the Southwest Licking School District, especially during this very difficult time, and the Board of Education thanks you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Right, so we would need a motion then, please, for the one-time payment to both the superintendent and treasurer.
I will make a motion that we make a one-time payment in the amount that the teachers and other
Administrators.
administrators
Yeah.
received. It was the same. but-
Okay, yep.
And
In
in
lieu
lieu
of.
of the 2.5%.
Perfect.
Second. Oh,
Any discussion? Mr. Jones?
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler?
yes.
Mrs. Engel?
Yes. That motion passes. Thank you both for your continued service. All right, we need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Engel?
Yes. We are adjourned at 9:20 p.m.